a few times and decided that when we retired, my wife and myself, we were going to come here and perfect our golf game. Everything worked real well until we got to perfecting the golf game. That's not going so good. But enough about me right at the moment. What we want to do is get into the candidates and some of the ground rules we have here. But before we go any further, one thing I do want to mention, and that is a big thank you to you candidates. You know why? Not only for coming out to Mesquite, but just to put yourself out there and take, I bet you've had some slings, arrows, barbs tossed at you. Of course, you won't, this is nothing compared if you get elected. So, but anyhow, we want to thank you for coming out and putting yourself out there and answering people's questions, and thanks once again. We have a few ground rules we want to mention here. The debate, we have the two candidates for, of course, for county seat, and then later we'll have the debate for the congressional district. Our panelists will be asking questions, and the candidates will have a minute and a half to answer, and then they have just during the debate, just 2 times they can respond for 30 seconds. So you choose the times that you want to step up and respond. And by the way, stepping up, X marks the spot. If you aren't comfortable sitting there and want to stand up and, walk around a little bit, walk to that X spot. And besides that, before getting to the opening statements, which we will have an opening and a closing statement about a minute long from each of the candidates, we do want to introduce our panel here. First of all, on this side, Steve Kiggins. He's the executive editor for the Spectrum Medium, which includes the twice weekly paper here in Mesquite, the Desert Valley Times, and the daily newspapers in St. George and also Cedar City. Next to Steve is Dana Resnick Gentry. She's an investigative journalist, former anchor of the weekly business program Vegas In on Channel 3. And Dana has been serving as executive producer of the Ralston Reports and Face to Face with John Ralston for some 14 years. Next is Riley Snyder. He's the one that's going to keep us straight tonight. No Pinocchios. He's the one that gives out the Pinocchios, okay? He works for PolitiFact Nevada, currently working out of KTNV, Channel 13, Action News. Previously covered the state legislature for the Associated Press. And lastly, John Williams, who will start the questioning. He's a principal of Let's Talk Nevada, which is broadcasting this evening's event. And he has been heavily involved in business management over his lifetime, holding the position of CEO in 12 companies and in 7 different industries. Okay, Clark County, District B, basically stretches from the urban area of Vegas up this way, all the way to Mesquite. And first of all, we want to introduce Marilyn Kirkpatrick. She was Speaker, as many of you know, of the Nevada Assembly and then Democratic Minority Leader. Marilyn was appointed by the governor to the Clark County Commission last summer, I believe it was, when Tom Collins resigned. She and her husband Michael together have 6 children and 6 grandchildren. And Steve Ross, 3rd term Las Vegas City Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem. Steve represents Ward 6, fastest growing area of Vegas, by the way, encompassing the far northwest and Centennial Hills, an area that has doubled in population in just the past 6 years. He's a native Nevadan. Councilman Ross and his wife Kelly have 5 children and 13 grandchildren. 14 now. Papers aren't keeping up with you. Both of you have a great political focus group that's set up there. Okay, John, go at it.
Okay, my first question is for Marilyn. Marilyn, the use and protection of federal public lands is an important issue to many Virgin Valley Democrats. Do you support the federal government's continued ownership and management of public lands, or do you want to see public lands turned over to more local control?
Thank you, first and foremost, for having the opportunity to come out here today. What I will tell you is there's a balance to be had all the way around, because what we need is for folks to be able to maintain the lands as they are today. So I believe that we've seen over time that there's legislation to allow local governments to have some portions of federal lands, which we use all the time for fire stations and schools, and many of those instruments. I believe there's legislation in Congress today that talks about protecting certain federal lands, absolutely, as they should, but first and foremost, we need to talk about maintaining those. Who has the ability to maintain those, and how can we best preserve them so that folks can use them on a regular basis, take pride in them, because there are many wonderful things out there, and ensure that for the long term that they're here for. I have a great-granddaughter, which wasn't in your piece there, but so that they have the ability to use those 100 years from now.
All right, the next question is for Steve. This has to do with the rooftop solar controversy, as I'm sure both of you are well aware of. It's a multi-part question, so I'm okay to repeat any of it if you forget part of it. Do you think the legislature got it right in kicking the decision to modify the net metering cap to the Public Utilities Commission during the last legislative session? What role would you as county commissioner recommend, or what would you as county commissioner recommend to the next legislature if elected? And how would you balance or recommend balancing giving a subsidy to rooftop solar customers with the needs of ratepayers as a whole?
You're on a roll. Thank you all for coming out, by the way, tonight and participating with us in this debate. Riley, could you repeat the first part of that question?
Yeah, the first part was, do you think the legislature got it right in kicking the net metering decision to the Public Utilities Commission?
Absolutely not. I think the legislature failed to demonstrate necessary leadership when it comes to rooftop solar in the state of Nevada. I think the Public Utilities Commission got it wrong. I think the governor, who oversees that Public Utilities Commission and appoints those members, should have stepped in and demonstrated that necessary leadership to make solar a priority in southern Nevada. That's what I think. Now, your second part.
The second part of the question was, what would you as county commissioner recommend to the next legislature when they meet in February?
Well, I'm actually doing something different in the city of Las Vegas right now. I am sponsoring an ordinance that will create an energy improvement district, similar to a special improvement district, so we can bring rooftop solar back to the city of Las Vegas. And I'm hoping the other local governments pay attention and watch how we do this, because I've already spoken to authorities in Boulder City who agree with what we're trying to do in the city of Las Vegas. So we're moving forward regardless of that decision by the PUC. And I think we're going to see some significant issues coming up, especially with a lot of these ballot initiatives.
Response? Because I have two. Okay, I'd like the option to respond.
Last year during the legislature.
Well, she can respond directly to that now.
Unless you want to ask the same question.
Well, it was the same question basically, but during a heated exchange with some solar lobbyists.
We can't hear you.
No.
Sorry, I usually have it attached to me. Last year during the legislature, you decried the solar industry's lobbying tactics and had some pretty heated exchanges with some lobbyists, excuse the pun. And you said it was clear in 2007 what the expectation was. It was always our intent to back down the subsidies. Given the loss of jobs since then, do you now regret punting that to the PUC?
Here's what I would tell you. It's a complicated issue no matter how you look at it. We started in 2007. I sponsored large-scale solar, which has done well. It's brought over $5 billion to Nevada as a whole. We worked in 2009 to bring the net metering on board to give it the jump start as we wanted, like with any industry, at some point, give them the jump start to get going. What I will tell you is, for us at the legislature, at the request of many of the solar folks, they felt that the legislature was not did not have enough knowledge about net metering as a whole when you looked at 63 legislators, and they asked and they have testified that they wanted the PUC to make the decision. So unfortunately, what I will tell you is the legislature did give away their ability, and the next legislature should be able to get their authority back and address it. And I would caution, I'd love to have more details on the government's piece, because in 2009, the federal government stopped that particular program of allowing government to make loans on rooftop solar because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were not able to give those loans. So there's more details, and so I would believe that the legislature is going to address it. I believe that the PUC phased it in over 12 years to give the legislature enough time to get their authority back.
Okay, time, and we did not charge you with a rebuttal there since it was a full question. There you go. Steve.
Good evening. Wow, I sound really loud. Yes. I like your name, Steve. Talk to me a little bit about, I'm sure you noticed it, driving in the Exit 118 project there in Mesquite. Certainly the city would like to see that become part of a economic boost for this area, and I know there's a lot of other communities in rural Nevada that are looking to diversify their economy. Are there some things that you can take from your experience in the Las Vegas area and bring to help in Mesquite?
Absolutely. In fact, I think what I've seen over the past several years is that lack of support that the county has not given to the municipalities within its borders. Mesquite especially. There are so many golden opportunities I see, whether it's economic development or job creation or better and brighter neighborhoods, which, by the way, you have great neighborhoods out here, which you all know, or you would be living here. But absolutely. In fact, just today I was at the Paiute Indian Reservation in Ward 6, the area I represent in Centennial Hills, and I have a sovereign nation actually in my ward, which also is in this commission district. They're going to have a very large cultivation facility there and dispensary 3 miles from my house, which I just learned today. But in regards to economic growth and development, there's currently a master plan project called Sky Canyon Development, 9,000 homes, gaming overlay district, retail. And we're talking about extending a road called Sheep Mountain Parkway all the way to Kyle Canyon Road and then all the way into the Paiute Indian Reservation to do exactly what you just suggested, help them create some economic some interest and spur development. So thank you.
Okay, back to you, John.
Okay, and I'm going to change the order up here so that I get to ask Steve a question, and we'll alternate who we're asking questions to. Steve, many commission, and we're going to talk tonight a lot about, we're going to say the word Democrats a lot because this is a group of Democrats trying to choose the Democratic candidate for this office. So when I talk about Democrats, I'm not ignoring that there's another party somewhere in this country. We just don't care about them tonight. Many Commission B, District B Democrats have felt pretty neglected by former Commissioner Tom Collins. I've been here 5 years. I don't recall ever holding or attending a meeting with him in Mesquite in the 5 years I've been here. How will you decide and assure us that you can represent and be available to Mesquite and rural Democrats?
Thanks, John. Whenever he asks me a question, I shudder a little bit. Just kidding. There's a few people in this room that know me well enough and know my leadership style. My wife, Kelly's here tonight with me as well, supporting my efforts to become your next county commissioner. We are in our neighborhood, in our ward, every single day, working with it doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans. I didn't want to use that word, John, because I know that offends a few people in here. But we care so much about our community, about our neighborhood, about our children and our grandchildren, about the businesses that are in the district that we work very hard to support. You have my same commitment. In fact, I committed that to you last year. And to a handful of folks that are in this room, I committed that to you, and I'm going to live up to that as I committed to a few of you tonight. Mesquite needs representation, certainly far better than what Tom Collins gave you, and I feel bad for that. Thank you, John.
Next question is for Marilyn. Do you agree with the recent state audit recommending that the State Taxicab Authority be shut down or put into the NTA? Why or why not?
What I would tell you, that's been a long time conversation that's had to be had on who maintains what regulations and who oversees it. What I will tell you is the audit was very appalling. We have tried for many years to look at it, to send business and industry the ability to go back and revisit it. You know, what I will tell you is Clark County taxi cabs are the only one that are regulated. Everywhere else in the state it does not exist. So if the legislature were to give it to local government, I believe it would be something fairly simple that we could put in order quickly. At the end of the day, it really has to be about ensuring that the consumer, our tourists, get the proper ride at the proper price so that they can come to our state. And Mesquite, you all are focusing much more on tourism. You have a voice on the Las Vegas Convention Authority, and so it is important that we get people from that airport out here, and many times a taxi ride is somewhere along the way.
Councilman Joe Lombardo, Sheriff Joe Lombardo wants another $10 million for Metro Police. Are you in favor of giving him that money? If so, where would it come from?
Just a little background on that. Thank you, Dan, for that question. The city of Las Vegas pays about 40% of Metro's budget, and Clark County pays about 60% of Metro's budget, plus or minus a few dollars in there. Every year, I've never seen the sheriff, any sheriff, come to the city or the county and say, hey, I want less this year. And it just doesn't happen. And it certainly is not happening this budget cycle as well. But I can tell you this. The Clark County Commission should have approved the voter-approved tax increase for more cops on the streets. I've supported that from day one with Mayor Goodman. I support it today. He probably would not be going through this process about wanting $10 million. I don't believe what Clark County did, incrementally increasing the tax, is enough. We need more cops on the street today. Thank you, David.
So do you support, would you vote to?
Absolutely. How we fit that into the budget is another story. Supporting is one thing, paying for it's another.
How would you pay for it?
I'd have to certainly take a look at our budget. I know my discussions with my city manager is somewhere in the middle of that. So it's always a negotiation with the sheriff, just like any department head, whether it's the city or the county. The manager says, hey, cut your budgets, or let me have your budgets. So I do support it, Dana. Certainly for the tourists, the 42 million people that come to the city every year, we're pushing for 43 this year. There's certainly not enough police officers